I have my friend Debbie on today, and Debbie did something that's kind of unique for cancer patients. She went a more holistic route with her treatment. She can explain it way better than I can, so I'm going to have her on and talk about that. But we know that cancer is already a scary thing, and even the treatment is scary. Everything is unknown, and so I wanted her to come on and talk with us about what she's been through and what got her to the decision of going a less traditional route with her treatment. Okay, that being said, here is Debbie. Hey, Debbie.
Hi, Marisa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. This is
awesome. Very happy to have you on, and I am very excited for you to share with everybody your experience at CHIPSA. So why don't you go ahead and start with just what cancer you had, and then how you came to decide which treatment route to take.
Okay, sure. I have a squamous cell carcinoma in a very sensitive area. It's actually anal, and because of the location, I thought there were a lot of scary risks, even though the doctors assured me there weren't with radiation. So through a girlfriend who sent me a link to CHIPSA, she didn't know anything about it, but she was trying to help me out. I read up on their treatment and just compared the two and decided to go that route for myself. And the reason being is I've been pretty careful about the quality of food that I have chosen to eat. That's one thing. And exercise, I've been pretty good about that. And it just seemed to align with my belief system, as well as I had been listening to Chris Wark. Chris Wark, he's got a website called chrisbeatscancer.com. And I'd been following him for about 7 or 8 years. So I was always already a little familiar that there were other options available, and always wondered if I had ever gotten a diagnosis, what I would really do in the moment. So.
Wow. So you already had thought about this and, almost had a game plan because you had been following someone.
Yeah, but it's always when the rubber meets the road, what are you really going to do? Because in our country, the only methods that the doctors recommend and treat is the traditional, what we call cut and burn. So they recommend high dose chemo, radiation, and surgery, and not all three. Sometimes it's just one. But we do know that full grade chemo has some repercussions with neuropathy, a low immune system for at least the next 2 to 3 years. Radiation burns more than one part of the body, even though they've got it pretty specialized to really, reduce the scatter radiation. There's no guarantees there. And from what I've learned through my experience at this point, once they cut out a cancer, the body has no way to know what it should be looking for. So they take the whole cancer out, which sounds really good, except you have cancer cells in your body as soon as you cut. And your body has no way to identify them. So those are some things I've learned from listening to different broadcasts and being at CHIPSA, which is an immunotherapy cancer center. So they are really unique. There's a lot of other cancer centers available, but CHIPSA has certain products that are specific to that hospital only, that are really unique.
So. Okay. Explain, you called it immunotherapy?
Yeah.
Explain the difference, or what is that? Is that the same as what they do at like a regular oncology center?
No. I have heard people that have had cancer treatments here in the state, and they say, yeah, I did immunotherapy, and I forget the name of the drug. It's something that's advertised on television that they may or may not have success with. But immunotherapy at CHIPSA, and I'm not an expert in immunotherapy, but immunotherapy in CHIPSA has to do with a lot of different treatments that boost your own immune system, which helps it be stronger to fight any disease that's in your body. And so simple things that you can get here in the States. One is ozone, which is where they extract your blood. They put it in a bag and they fill it with ozone, and they have the blood go back into your system. And anybody can Google what ozone does. They use it for all sorts of things, not just cancer, but injuries and so on. And ozone treatment just boosts the immune system and antibodies and also things that I can't remember offhand. But that's one thing that you can get here in the States. And you can also get a vitamin C IV in the United States. What I get at CHIPSA is vitamin C with potassium K3. And K3 is not recognized as an FDA approved vitamin, go figure, in the United States. So you can get the vitamin C here, but you can't get the vitamin C K3. And the K3 happens to work with another immuno drug that I get, or that's called Coley's toxins. And Coley's is COLEY toxins. And if you YouTube CHIPSA and watch the video on Coley's toxins, you'll be really impressed. So Charles Coley's was a doctor, and he is the first oncologist that started treating cancer. And his toxin originally, this is back in the early 1900s, and he had success. And you'll watch and see how his daughter went to later try and get this FDA approved. And I think chemotherapy had just come out about the same time. I think it was the 1950s, and nobody would sponsor her. It's amazing. And so Coley's toxins, it's a dead bacteria that is IV'd when you're at CHIPSA or injected at home when you're doing your aftercare, that just causes your body to feel a little sick. Like, I might not feel anything, but my immune system is like, whoa, there's something in here. And so it kind of keeps it at peak performance so that it stays on alert for my cancer cells. So those are just 3 of maybe 9 different treatments I received at CHIPSA Hospital. So it's really been good.
Now explain, is this a place where you go and stay for an extended amount of time, or is it kind of like outpatient? How does that work?
It's both. So my first visit was, and they recommend this, was 3 weeks inpatient. It's a little more expensive being inpatient, but you do have a companion that comes with you. You're kind of in a very old Mexican dorm. And in that place,
this is in Mexico?
Yeah, right in Playa de Tijuana, so on the ocean side of Tijuana. And they were, my daughter came with me, and she was my companion, and she was able to go to every single thing I went to, because they have classes as well to help educate you in different areas. And so that was one reason I chose to go inpatient. I got a good feel for the treatment, plus you get your treatments on the weekends. Whereas if you do outpatient for 3 weeks, which you can, you're on your own on Saturdays and Sundays, and you're not there at night. So they have their own vans and such, and they pick you up at whatever Airbnb or hotel you're staying at, and they bring you to the hospital. And then the outpatients have a special room on the 5th floor, and the inpatients are on floors 2 through 4. And the inpatients are also, the inpatients are also allowed to go on the outpatient floor and socialize and such. So it's really
that's great.
Yeah.
Now, what is sounds funny, but I was going to say, what's the culture there? But like, is everyone, because I remember obviously chemo and radiation makes you feel like garbage. When I had cancer, I felt very tired. So you're saying that you guys would socialize and stuff. Is that like, does it look like people are, lying down all over the place? Or is it because you haven't gone through chemo, people are a little more able-bodied and kind of, chatting and more energy than like a regular oncology center? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. No, you kind of have to take the whole viewpoint of the United States hospitals out of view, because they're very white, very sterile,
Yes.
and very confined. So
Yeah.
this particular hospital, what you find is that there's not a lot of cancer patients, um, and I think they're only doing like 13 outpatients and 8 inpatients now, and that had to do with COVID.
Okay.
And on the 5th floor, there's like what do you call them? Like recliner chairs, the really big burly kind. And then there's your stand where all your IVs are hooked up, and then you're looking out over, to the ocean. It's not luxurious like Malibu or anything like that, but it's a very good building. And so a lot of the patients are from all over the world, and most of the patients have already been through 2 or 3 bouts of cancer treatments, and we're told at that point to go home and die. And so they're looking for their next spot or salvation. And I just learned the last time I was there that some people, they do die in that hospital. They're just that bad off. So some people in the outpatient, they're, depending on where their cancer is located, how long they've had it, what stage they are in pain, physical pain. And other places, other people like myself, I just seem like a normal, healthy person. So yeah, I seem like the healthy person there, and I'm usually bebopping around. Whenever we get our Coley's IVs, that's probably the worst treatment. Most people's worst treatment is chemo. Ours is Coley's, because when you're getting an IV, you can have a pretty adverse reaction where you get the shakes. You are cold. The body aches for me are the worst. It usually settles in my lower back, and I get a headache. But it's gone by the end of the day. So whoop-de-doo. When I talk to the cancer patients that have been through chemo, they're like, oh, this is nothing compared to chemo. I'll take Coley's any day over chemo. But I don't have that experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure they told you in there, when you get chemo, you're kind of down for the count, like at least 3 days, usually a week, sometimes 2, but you just feel like garbage. So that sounds better.
Well, I've never thrown up. I've never, even when they do low grade chemo there. So it's 10% to 15% chemo with insulin. And so they have you fast. And then when they give you that chemo in that way, the insulin drives the chemo directly to the tumor, since there's more insulin sites on tumors. And so that's the idea. And I don't feel anything. I mean, it's in, I'm out, I'm done. I think the pre-medication they give me can make me tired for that period of time. So I might be a little tired, but usually it's tired like you're on your phone tired. You know what I mean?
Not optimal. Well, that's so interesting. I think that most people think that it's like black and white, you're either taking one route, which is totally natural, or you're going to the hospital. But the fact that they recognize, they're like, let's get some chemo in here, like this is going to help. It seems like they're really all about, killing the cancer, which, I hate to say that, but you start to think about possible agendas, that are maybe going on, because sometimes the cure kills you. Sometimes the chemo and the radiation are so intense, and then your body is not really being recharged because maybe you're not getting the nutrients. Back when I was in the hospital, they would feed me cookies. They would say, the nurse would come by and be like, do you want a cookie? And, I know that the sugar is not the thing to have when you have cancer, but also when you're feeling like garbage, And you're also just having cravings. So like I wasn't eating anything. So, I remember another time in ICU, the nurse was like, you need protein, but you're not eating anything. So why don't you have this milkshake at least? And, I'm not a nutritionist, like maybe the milkshake was better than nothing. But anyways, that's a whole tangent, but I like that the place that you're describing, they seem to, it's like, what can we do? Like, what nutrients can we get into your body that will help you to heal? And like if a little bit of chemo is gonna like help zap that thing, like let's do that. And then, it's even the fact that like it's not a sterile environment where it's just like white walls, like you can see the ocean, you're with people, you're able to socialize. It sounds more uplifting than being in the hospital. So I like that it seems like it's a little more of a whole body kind of healing experience.
Well, it is. I mean, they have 2 psychologists there. So I have Dr. Diaz as my fave, and we meet every time I go in. I always have, and there's no time limit. He's not like on his clock and in 50 minutes he's going to go to the next. It's like we'll be talking and I'm like, do you need to go? And he's like, oh no, we're good. It's Mexico. There's so much more on, we call it Mexico time. It's really funny. And, we do hyperbaric chamber as well. And then they feed you, and everything is organic. It's primarily fresh squeezed juices. And then you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And those involve primarily vegetables. My protein was low at one point. They added a little bit of chicken. So again, they're not like this vegan, this is how it has to be done. They run, when you're inpatient, they run my blood twice a week, always checking my liver enzymes, my protein, my hemoglobin, so on and so forth. If you're low on fluids, they'll give you the fluid, IVs, iron IVs. They're just really on their game. And yet they're very, very calm and kind of no big deal. And then the walls, like people can draw on the walls and they put different sayings on the walls. I beat cancer. You can't get me down. And we have, I think it's on Mondays and Thursdays, we have this one program called Power of the Mind. You were talking about being more holistic. This had to do with the mindset and what are you thinking, and just really, really interesting. And then the nutritionist comes in on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, we would have the naturopath would talk about the cancers, what they do, what their success rates are, what they're looking for. Because my naturopath said, listen, you want to start with the butter knife, which would be CHIPSA. And if that's not giving you a result within 3 weeks, then you might need to go to the steak knife. I don't know what that would be, but it'd be the next step up. And he said, if that's not working, then hey, or it's not giving you the results, then hey, we're gonna bring out the big guns. We're gonna bring out the cut and burn. One of the summits that I just listened to is called The Missing Link, Cancer, the Missing Link, and it's all about the mind and the vagus nerve and your fight and flight and peace and those kind of things, and that they're finding what a big role this plays in cancer, as you were just briefly discussing. And he said, thank you for those of you who support. So if you buy the download, which was under $100, it's supporting them. And he said, because these doctors are not really allowed to speak anywhere. And again, going through COVID, knowing that there were doctors that were supportive and doctors that weren't for what was going on during this time period, you didn't get to hear the doctors that were saying, hey, there's some other things we need to look at. And that's how it is in cancer also. If you're not mainstream and you're not chemo, you're not radiation, and you're not cut and burn, you're not heard unless you can get out through another venue, such as what you and I are doing right now. And each person has to decide for themselves. It's a personal choice. There's like you said, you get the cancer diagnosis and then there's the fear. And because in this country, it's all cut and burn, it's hard to get support even from your friends and family, because they're afraid, because they don't know what they don't know. And people mostly want to trust and believe in their doctors, but as you and I have spoken before, my mother-in-law just died of cancer. My mom died of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
My grandma died of cancer. They all went the traditional route, but everybody expects that. But if you
Yeah.
go the non-traditional route and you survive, it was like, oh, you're 1 in a million, which isn't true. But if you die, it's like, oh, you should have gone the other route. And you're constantly even battling that internally. It's hard.
Yeah,
But I'm glad I chose the route I did, because if I don't live this out, in a way I'd like to, at least I lived a very quality life, because I am anything but sick.